This podcast is part of the It Was a Thing on TV podcast network.
An anthology on the bad, the short-lived, and forgotten shows and events in television history. You are listening to It Was a Thing on TV.
Time is up. You ran into trouble.
Episode number 591, submission number 006B. Hello, Larry Revisited. Hello, Larry aired on NBC from January 26th of 1979 to April 30th of 1980 for 38 episodes.
Hey guys, since I wasn't here the first time when you did this show, how about I sing the Hello Larry theme song for you guys? Oh, that'd be great, the Ghost of Bill Armstrong. How about you sing it? Okay. Well, hello Larry. Hello, Larry. You talk to people all day for a living. Hello, Larry. The answer is all you're giving. Oh, you really feeling not that way. Portland is a long way from LA. A long way. Hello, Larry. Hello, Larry. Hello, Larry. You do know there was another verse of the song you had to sing, Ghost of Bill Armstrong. I didn't feel like singing the rest of that song.
Can you blame him?
Mike is still stunned by the Ghost of Bill Armstrong singing the Hello Larry theme.
No, I'm not. I'm actually ready to start this. But yes, I am still a little flabbergasted by what I just heard from the Ghost of Bill Armstrong. Good heavens. I thought you were going to ask us, me and Chico, to do the backups there, to do the Hello Larry. That's what I thought the Ghost of Bill Armstrong was going to ask. I was ready to jump in there, but I didn't want to step on his toes. I think this is a long time coming, guys. Hello Larry was one of the first shows we covered back in the day, and it's been regarded as one of the worst shows of all time. And if you listen to our ranking the 50 worst shows of all time, I don't think a lot of us put Hello Larry even in the top 20. I think I ended up putting him somewhere in the 30s because there's just been a hell of a lot more shows that are worse than Hello Larry. After seeing some of the episodes, I see what they're trying to do. An effort was made. They were trying to kind of emulate another TV show, I think, kind of, sort of, with the humor, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But if you know what company is behind Hello Larry, you can maybe suss out what show they're kind of trying to emulate. But again, we'll get to that later. So who is Larry and why are we saying hello to him? Larry is Larry Alder. He's a talk show host who, well, you heard what the Ghost of Bill Armstrong said. He went from Los Angeles to Portland after his divorce. And he brought his 2 teenage daughters with him. The show originally starts off, for the first few episodes, where the writers essentially write Larry Alder as sort of an adult in terms of doing his talk show thing. But shortly after the premiere, about 5 episodes in, the series then focused more on the daughters, which I think is really what the focus should be. He got a divorce. Who necessarily cares about the bantering between Larry and his callers when he's got 2 teenage daughters? So that was the focus for the series after, again, about episode 5 or so. It became a show about the relationship between Larry Alder and his daughters, more so than work, even though there were still work moments. And even moments with other family members and people he works with at the radio station, other acquaintances. I think we need to start talking about who is who in this cast. We've talked about plenty of these people in the past. We'll start with Larry Alder, who was played by the birthday boy this week, the one and only McLean Stevenson, 98 years young on Friday of this week. If we need to go over what McLean Stevenson is known for, just in case somebody doesn't know who he is, he was Colonel Henry Blake on the first 3 seasons of MASH. He had his self-titled TV show in 1976 that didn't last very long. He was also on Kondo, a show he covered way back when, a show from 1983. He's kind of a big deal. Playing one of his daughters, Ruthie Adler, is Kim Richards. I think we know her best nowadays from the Real Housewives series. Or, as I've mentioned in the past, the meme with Smudge the cat. Now, she's not the one that... I'm saying she's not the one that goes after the cat. She's the one that holds back her sister, Kyle. Where you might know Kim Richards from besides that. She played Prudence, young child. I mean, she would have only been probably about... Oh, gosh, I almost said it. 6 or 7 years old. 6, 7! That hasn't died yet. But she played Prudence, young girl, like I said, probably about 6 or 7 years of age, on Nanny and the Professor. If you remember that, and I know that's rerun on like Laugh More, I think. But also I mentioned The Housewives. She was on most of James at 15, if you remember that from the late 70s. The sort of coming of age story. But again, you'd know her nowadays more for Real Housewifing, more than Hello Larrying, let's say. I just turned a TV show title, actually 2 TV show titles, into verbs. Hello Larrying and Real Housewifing. That's why I teach math. Next, playing Morgan Wilson, who works with Larry Elder at the radio station, Joanna Gleason. Maybe you don't know her specifically from one other role, but you'd probably know her best because she is Monty Hall's daughter. And she's married to Chris Sarandon. I did not know that.
Oh.
Yeah. And Chris Sarandon, he has cards in Americana. And I got a signed card somewhere in my collection of him. Playing the other daughter, there are actually 2 actresses. There is one for season 1 and one for season 2. The daughter, Diane Alder, in season 1 was played by Donna Wilkes. Sorry, this is about as good as it gets for her. She did other things, but this is pretty much the big role of her career.
Now, hold on a second. She was in the movie Angel.
Angel?
Yeah, do you know the movie Angel?
No.
Oh, are you kidding? It's
Who is the Angel in Angel?
It's Angel, high school student by day, hooker by night.
Oh!
Oh, I was hoping you're going to say instead of Angel, you're going to say Angela, and I could just see Tony Danza popping in. Angela, what are you doing being a hooker?
Jesus Christ.
I've never seen Angel. I've never heard of Angel.
It's on Tubi. I thought we talked about Angel last time we did this show.
Which was like, what, 5.5 years ago? Like, I'm supposed to remember that far back. I can't remember what happened 5.5 hours ago.
Well, Chico can't remember anything 15 minutes ago. So.
Oh,
I was just about to say, and you think my memory's terrible.
That's a low blow. Playing Tommy Rossini, who was the sort of mischievous next-door neighbor kid, is John Famia. He played Marshall Bleckman in Square Pegs, which is something that we're going to cover in the next 9 months or so. But that's about the extent of his career. Hello, Larry, Square Pegs. That's it. Playing Earl, who's the producer at the radio station, at least for the first season, and I believe early into the second season, is George Mamoli. First off, hasn't been with us for over 40 years. And if you actually watch Hello, Larry, maybe it's not surprising because he is morbidly obese. I mean, not even joking about the size. You know, we may be kind of on the big side on this show. He had to have been pushing probably 500, 450 pounds. He was a big guy. Not really known for anything else TV-wise, but he was part of the Ace Trucking Company, which we brought up, I do believe, on the original episode when we first covered this, along with Patty Deutsch, Bill Saluga, Fred Willard. Another addition in the series for season 2. This sounds like desperation, trying to save the series. Playing, oh, hey, this is an interesting name. Playing Meadowlark Lemon is Meadowlark Lemon. Harlem Globetrotter legend Meadowlark Lemon, if you ask me. Do you guys not agree with me, or is there another Harlem Globetrotter that you like more than Meadowlark Lemon? I think he's the best of all time, or at least the most well-known.
I'm more of a Curly Neal guy myself.
That's number 2. If you name one of the best Harlem Globetrotters of all time, it's either usually Meadowlark Lemon or Curly Neal. You're not wrong there. Totally valid answer there.
Was he one of the Harlem Globetrotters that was on Gilligan's Island?
No, I don't see that. And that would have been later. Wouldn't that have been like 79 or 80?
I think it was 81.
Yeah, maybe he was busy at the time. I don't think he was necessarily playing. Maybe in an ambassador role for the Harlem Globetrotters, but no, he wasn't on that. He was on the Harlem Globetrotters popcorn machine, which we've mentioned in the past.
Wait, what the fuck is the Harlem Globetrotters popcorn machine?
It's a Saturday morning TV show. It aired right about the same time as the Hudson Brothers Razzle Dazzle show. I don't know if that's trying to scare you off or whatnot. It's just a kids program.
Hmm.
Nothing terribly offensive, and there's clips out on YouTube of it. It's an interesting title, though, Harlem Globetrotters Popcorn Machine. We'll do one more name, and then we'll get started talking about the episodes. Playing Henry Alder, Larry's dad, is Fred Stuffman. And sadly, this would have been one of his last roles, because he passed away in July of 1982, so roughly 2 years after the show got canceled. He did actually do a number of things. Actually, his last role was in Father Murphy as an undertaker, oddly enough. Taking a look at IMDb, he's really not well known for anything else. He did play a photo editor on 6 episodes of Lou Grant. It looks like in season 1 of Lou Grant. Besides that, episode here, episode there. So now that we got the major characters out of the way, let's talk about some episodes. We do have a lot of them. We got 38. That's quite a few episodes, so we might be here a little while. Hopefully not. We'll start, as we always do, with the first episode of season 1, which is titled How to Not To. As Larry feels overwhelmed as a parent, his oldest daughter, Diane, is about to date a promiscuous boy. What was that about Angel, that hooker you talked about earlier? I think this is the male version of Angel, the hooker. A promiscuous boy? Craig neither agrees nor disagrees. Playing Mr. Promiscuous, Bobby, on this episode, is Christian Brackett Zika. He went by Christian Zika in this episode. Really, the only reason I mention him is because he played the son, Harold Crane, on previous entry Domestic Life with Martin Mull. Episode number 2 is titled The New Kid. Ruthie feels neglected by her schoolmates, especially a narrow-minded girl who looks down on Larry's occupation. That's harsh, but also at the same time, that's what a lot of people do. They look down at Larry, and Larry gets a little snarky and arrogant and whatnot. Just goes with the territory. Episode 3 is titled The Final Papers. This is the episode where Larry's divorce is finalized. He's happy. The girls, not so much. The girls eventually come around to understand where Larry's coming from, where it's a bit of a relief, but still there's a little bit of sticker shock there. And actually in this episode, after the divorce goes through and after there's a little bit of time to settle down, Larry starts, I'm not going to say dating, but he gets, I don't want to use proposition since we've already talked about promiscuity and hookers, but one of the callers to the radio show, actually really wants to hook up with Larry. Nothing ever happens with that. We have two names in this episode, believe it or not. Playing Max is Alan Autry, but he went by the name Carlos Brown in this episode, interestingly enough. Alan Autry played Captain Bubba Skinner on In the Heat of the Night, 146 episodes. But also I mentioned him because he has a sign card in the Cheers Rittenhouse set. He was on a season 1 episode where he was an athlete. He was a player, I believe, for the Boston Red Sox, just like Sam Malone. He came out of the closet, and that's a little bit of a touchy subject in 1983. Maybe a little more widely accepted nowadays, but 1983, that's a tough topic to tackle. Beyond that, we have one more name, and this is somebody who was not the woman who called and was like really flirtatious and really anxious to meet Larry, but she was somebody at the bar who caught Larry's attention, and Larry just was not interested in her. She was a little too over-aggressive. Her name is Lori in this episode, and she's played by Sherry Spillane. The only reason I mentioned her, no other major roles, she was the wife of Mickey Spillane, the creator of Mike Hammer.
Wow.
The things you learn on this podcast. Speaking of things that maybe you don't know that you learned on this podcast, talking about McLean Stevenson, his son is Jeff McGregor, the same Jeff McGregor that hosted the new dating game back in the late 80s. And also, he's currently a writer for Smithsonian Magazine. One of the more prolific writers, if you ask me. About 2 weeks ago, when you hear this, when this episode is released, the Game Show Vault uploaded an episode of the all-new dating game with Jeff McGregor hosting. It was his birthday episode. His mother selected the Bachelorette for him. The Bachelorettes that were available, one is somebody who was on some soap and did the rounds on soaps. Don't even remember the name. That shows how important she is. The second person was Jenny Lee Harrison. And the third, Crystal Bernard. And you know what the prize was if she got selected. They went to go see Rent, even though Rent wasn't a thing till like 1994.
Hold on, I got something. You know what Crystal Bernard would say to Jeff McGregor when trying to find suggestions on where to go if they were out on Broadway? I want to see Rent.
I want to see Rent.
Even though that wasn't a thing for like 7 more years. I want to see this musical that's not going to exist for 6, well, there it is again, 6 or 7 more years.
Now, hold on a second. Could you imagine if McLean Stevenson, for some reason, wanted to see Rent? It is possible he could have seen Rent in his lifetime.
When did Rent come out again?
Like the early mid-90s.
It was like 94 or 95, and McLean Stevenson died in 96.
Okay.
So, yeah, he could have seen it. That's a weird observation, though. Moving on, episode 4 is titled The Hitchhiker. A homesick Diane begins to miss her boyfriend in L.A., so she decides to hitch her way back. Oh, that's not a good idea. Wasn't there a series on USA called The Hitchhiker, which...
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe it wasn't... Yeah, but maybe it wasn't necessarily horror stories about hitchhiking, but they did a whole series back in like the late 80s or early 90s revolving around hitchhikers, or The Hitchhiker. Episode 5 is titled Mother Morgan. Realizing there are things Ruthie and Diane aren't comfortable discussing with him, Larry works to solve the dilemma. He asks Morgan to step in as a confidant to his daughters. That's nice. There's no real female role model in their lives because of the divorce. So Morgan Winslow, Joanna Gleason, is stepping up to the plate. That's nice. But also, I think that shows the reality of divorce especially in the late 70s and early 80s. I don't want to say that's when it became popular, but it's kind of when it did become popular. Episode 6 is titled Ruthie's First Crush. Ruthie needs advice about a boy who wants to kiss her. Do it! Do it! Do it!
Do it!
Episode 7 is titled Larry's First Date. So he didn't go on a date when all those women were approaching him. I almost said propositioning. There may have been a proposition or two there, but apparently he didn't go on his first date till episode 7. Larry takes Morgan's sister out on a date, the first since his divorce. Do you really want to date a coworker's sister? That just sounds like it's not going to work out that well.
Someone say me gay co-worker sister.
Where the hell did that come from? I know who did it. I'm just wondering why that grabbed your attention.
I did all my co-worker sisters. No, Bizarro, wait a minute, why would you?
Aren't all of your co-workers' sisters like blood relatives of you? Isn't it sort of like a Smurfs thing? Aren't you all like related somehow? And somehow the only female among all the Smurfs is Smurfette? Where the hell did the other Smurfs come from?
Oh, damn it!
I think we just blew his mind.
I think he may have just blown something else, but never mind.
He doesn't have that equipment down there, guys.
Okay, that's really too much information. I didn't need to know what's going on down there. Moving on really fast, before we go on, I wanted to mention the name of Morgan's sister. Give it about 9-10 more years, and this is going to have a totally different connotation. The sister's name is Laura Winslow. So wait, Laura Winslow went on a date with Larry Adler and then later was being approached by Urkel? She gets around. It should also be noted that the actress who played Laura Winslow in this episode is Jan Schutten. Really, the only thing of note I see in her career, she played Bonnie on 8 episodes of Room 222. She was also on 5 episodes of Ben Casey. That's a show I don't think we've ever talked about, Ben Casey, even though that lasted a little while. And she was on 10 episodes of something called Sons and Daughters. Next episode is number 8, Peer Pressure. Larry finds speed pills in Diane's purse. No character name given, but Edie McClurg is in this episode. You gotta figure she's gotta be some sort of like parental type who's looking out for Diane after she finds the speed pills. I'm just thinking about the types of roles she does. I'm thinking about when she was the secretary in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She's got to play a role like that. Episode 9 is titled Leona, the New Neighbor. New tenant Leona moves into Larry's building and aids his daughters, but angers him. Leona actually is on a number of episodes. I believe she's on about 8 episodes, and she's played by Ruth Brown. I don't want to say this is as good as it gets for her, but this is about as good as it gets for her. 8 episodes of Hello, Larry. The next best thing on her resume is she did 3 episodes of something called Checking In 1981. Episode 10, and this is going to sound a little weird, and I totally understand why you may be a little confused. We'll connect the dots in a second. Episode 10 is titled The Trip Part 2. Not The Trip Part 1, The Trip Part 2. The Alder family welcomes Philip Drummond's family to Portland as Drummond is considering the downsizing of Alder's station. This is actually sort of a crossover episode, not a spin-off per se, but the Trip Part 1 was the Different Strokes episode, and the Trip Part 2 is the continuation, which was the Hello Larry episode. So again, not a spin-off per se, but a crossover. And that's actually why I said earlier, if you know who the company behind Hello Larry is, they also did Different Strokes, and that's why when I saw a number of these episodes, the humor reminds me a lot of Different Strokes. I can't explain it, to be honest. So there's how this all ties in kind of beautifully. And actually, this episode of Hello Larry is in the syndication package for Different Strokes. So you can see this whenever whatever station airs Different Strokes. I know somebody does. I want to say it's like the Griot or something like that. When they show Different Strokes, this episode is in that batch somewhere. Since this is a crossover with Different Strokes, obviously you're going to have a few names from Different Strokes coming over. We'll just go through them very briefly. These are people that everybody knows. Conrad Bain, Gary Coleman, Todd Bridges, Dana Plato, Charlotte Ray, girls. And Edie McClurg is on this episode as well, even though she isn't part of the Different Strokes cast. Episode 11 is titled The Triangle. Ruthie's boyfriend Eric develops a crush on Diane. These girls are horny little sons of guns. Dating, crushes on the sister's boyfriend. They got too many hormones. We're going to move on to episode 12, which is titled Larry's Bad Back. When Larry's back goes out, he becomes confined to bed. Larry is soon overwhelmed by family and friends' advice in addition to too much attention. Episode 13 is titled Rap with Ruthie. Ruthie does her own radio talk show for a school project. Hello, Ruthie! Oh, never mind. Nobody of note there. We'll go on to the final episode of season 1, My Sister the Criminal. Diane catches Ruthie stealing. And we're not talking about a boyfriend. Go figure. So that's the end of season 1. There's going to be some movement in terms of personnel for season 2. You're going to see that George Mamoli is gone, for better or for worse. But then you bring in Meadowlark Lemon. The primary plot of this series shifts primarily to the daughters now. There's not really talk about Larry Alder's issues at work, his fighting or being combative with the callers. It's now primarily about the daughters because I'm guessing the people at NBC said, yes, even though the daughters at this point are probably 16 years old, they weren't 18, which may make this even creepier, but let's focus on them because, well, maybe that's what draws the ratings. Bring in those male viewers between, let's say, 13 and 18 or 21, even though that's a little creepy. 21-year-old specifically watching this show to see 16-year-olds. Episode 15, and this is a case like what we had in season 1 with The Trip, where the Drummonds visit the Alders, and it's a crossover. We have Feudin' and Fussin' Part 2. The Drummond family welcomes the Alders to New York City as Larry auditions there for a television talk show. So now, instead of the Drummonds going to Portland, we've got the Alders going to New York City. And just like the first crossover, the first half of this was the episode of Different Strokes. This second episode is in the syndicated package for Different Strokes, so another opportunity to see the Alders in action whenever this episode pops up on the Griot or, again, whatever channel airs Different Strokes. I think it's the Griot. They're a channel that Friendly TV covers, and I've seen Different Strokes, I think, on their schedule. Obviously, since this is a crossover with Different Strokes, you've got those same people from Different Strokes: Conrad Bain, Gary Coleman, Todd Bridges, Dana Plato, and Charlotte Ray. Episode 2 of Season 2 is Hello, Marion! Part 1. That doesn't work that well. Doesn't really compare to Hello, Larry. Hello, Marion, Part 1. Larry's ex-wife, Marion, pays a visit. Marion, the ex-wife, is played by Shelley Fabares from Coach, Christine Armstrong, and The Donna Reed Show. Let's also add that younger Shelley Fabares was on the Donna Reed show, Mary Stone. So definitely a well-known personality on that episode. And I'm going to guess since that was part 1, she's probably on the next episode too. Let's find out. Episode 3 of season 2 is called, oh my gosh, Hello Marion Part 2. Go figure. And again, it just says, Larry's ex-wife Marion pays a visit. And now we say, oh, I was going to make a joke about this, but this is actually the episode title for the 4th episode of season 2. I was going to say, now we're going to say goodbye, Marion. Guess what? That's the title to this episode. Goodbye, Marion. Larry and Marion run into problems after they announce they're getting remarried.
What?
I concur. A big issue is where are they going to live and where will they work? I'm going to guess that Marion is down in Los Angeles. And you can't commute from Los Angeles to Portland, I'd even say terribly easily. I'd say it's pretty much impossible to commute from one place to the other like that. Yeah, if it was Portland and Seattle, yeah, I could see that happening. If it was Los Angeles and San Diego, absolutely. But Portland and Los Angeles, that's not going to work. Episode 5 of season 2 is titled Ruthie Grows Up Part 1. At the school dance, Ruthie falls for a 17-year-old who intends to make her his next romantic conquest. Again, with the boys. This is the first episode with Meadowlark Lemon. No, he's not the 17-year-old. Just get that out of your mind. I can't tell which of these two people is the 17-year-old. I'm guessing it might be this first person, Shane Nickerson, even though he would have only been about 15 at the time. He's playing the older man, well known for much of anything. The second person, on the other hand, Jimmy Ford, I don't know what age he is, but based on what I see on his IMDb, he could be a candidate for being the 17-year-old. He was on 3 episodes of Whiz Kids as Johnny Parker. And that's the extent of his career, unfortunately. Episode 6 of season 2 is Ruthie Grows Up Part 2. Ruthie must learn to deal with Cubby's grown-up intentions toward her. Now we know who the boyfriend is, because playing Cubby is that Jimmy Ford character that I mentioned earlier, the one who was on Whiz Kids. So that makes more sense based on the context clues and whatnot. Episode 7 is titled Thanksgiving Crossover Part 2. Hey, it's another Part 2. I wonder where Part 1 is. Philip Drummond and Larry Alder try to figure out how to get past their differences to enjoy Thanksgiving dinner. I'm not going to go through the entire cast of Different Strokes again, because, yeah, they're all there. In addition, we have one other person playing a bartender is William Pearson. The only thing of note I see on his IMDb is he was on 6 episodes of Three's Company. Dean Travers. Oh, hold on a second. I just found another role for William Pearson. And this is something that maybe we might cover next pilot month. He played a hotel inspector in Snavely. And I just mentioned Snavely because I know that just irritated the heck out of Greg. Snavely. What type of name is Snavely?
Yeah, what kind of freaking name is that?
Well, I think we talked about this in the past. There's actually a street or a drive in my hometown called Snavely. I don't know what Snavely is specifically. I think it may be the construction company. But there is a Snavely, and I do believe that Snavely is on the list. And I think it's one of those attempts to bring Faulty Towers over to the United States. I think we did talk about that when we talked about Amanda's. So I'm guessing Snavely owns a hotel. I don't know. And also, just like the other crossover episodes, this is in the Different Strokes syndicated package. So there's another chance for you to see Larry Alder and family. Episode 8 of season 2 is titled The Nude MC. I'm wincing. The Nude MC. No, we don't need to see your little Larry. Larry, who's looking for extra work, gets an offer to host a nude beauty pageant. But there's a catch.
What? Wait, hold on. What did you say? Nude beauty pageant?
Well, I said the title of the episode is The Nude MC. So, yes, I said nude beauty pageant. But, Greg, you're missing something here. There's a catch. He has to be nude, too.
What?
Yes. Little Larry shows up for this episode. Nobody of note in this episode. So, it's kind of a shame. Nobody of note in this episode, even though it's a new beauty pageant. You'd think there'd be like one Playboy bunny or something like that. I should look at IMDb's a little more often because one of the people in the episode named Francis, played by Anulka Fox Sales, also known as Anulka, oh gosh, this is a Polish name. Heaven help me. Zubinska. Dzubinska. She is in this episode and just clicked on her IMDb, and lo and behold, guess what? She is Playmate of the Month in May 1973. And actually, maybe I got the Polish wrong, because it also does say that she appeared in the pictorial Girls of Munich in August 1972. Episode 9 is titled Morgan the Boss. Morgan is promoted above Larry. Nobody of note in this episode, but it does appear to be George Mamoli's last episode. So while Morgan, she moves up, maybe Earl, the producer, gets cut. Episode 10 is titled Marion's Fiancé. Marion and her fiancé visit Larry. I thought they were going to get remarried, and now Marion is marrying another person. Marion is marrying another person. That sounds kind of weird. That new fiancé, Scott Taylor, is played by Don Chastain. He did some soaps back in the 70s and 80s. General Hospital, As the World Turns. Not many episodes. Young and the Restless in 2000. A couple of episodes there. Biggest thing I see for him is he played Dr. Max Taper on another one of the stories back in the day. Search for Tomorrow, 1980 to 1981. Episode 11 is titled Diane Drinks. Diane develops a drinking problem. Hey, this sort of sounds like we're getting into Different Strokes territory now. Life isn't all, sunshine and rainbows and whatnot. Kids got to have problems. Think about Different Strokes. Oh, by the way, from the same production company, by coincidence or otherwise. What happened that was sort of controversial on Different Strokes? I think we could start with Arnold and Dudley going to that bike shop.
Why'd you have to mention that, Mike? Why?
Just making parallels here. It's not my fault that Gordon Jump is just a total bastard. But also, I'm just thinking of other episodes, again, later on, talking like 83, 84. I remember an episode kind of vividly where Kimberly, she was washing her hair with like acid rain, and her hair turned, I forget what color. It might have been like a bright green, and that was like the big thing to bring attention to acid rain. Oh no, Kimberly Drummond, her hair turned green. And we could also talk about when Nancy Reagan was on, and she was giving a to Arnold. I mean, she was warning the kids about drugs. I'm going to bleep out that word, and you're never going to know what that word is. It's the same word that I used the last time I talked about Nancy Reagan doing something behind Ronald's back. That's going to be the new running joke. Nancy Reagan giving a to anybody she can find. I mentioned earlier that George Mamoli may have been on that last episode when Morgan got promoted. He happens to be on this episode, but also another name, and we've talked about this person in the past, no character name, Frank O'Letter is in this episode. We've definitely talked about him in the past. And his daughter is Kyle O'Letter, who was briefly a model on Price is Right. And we're going to talk about him again because he was on one of the worst TV shows of all time, and I know we're going to cover this eventually. It's About Time. It's got a good theme song, but the show is crap. Episode 12 is titled Tommy the House Guest. Tommy stays with the Alders while his mother is away. And Tommy's probably going to get into a lot of trouble with the girls. Just a prediction. I haven't seen this episode. but I'm pretty sure that's what happens. Episode 13, Larry's father. Larry's father moves in. As you might guess, this is the first episode with Fred Stuffman. Episode 14, The Blind Friend. Ruthie befriends Morgan's blind nephew. Episode 15 is titled Love Around the Corner. Larry finds love with a female tenant. I'm gonna guess this is the female tenant that he finds love with, primarily because she's the younger of the two people, but also she's the more well-known of the two people. Playing Marie in this episode is Rita Taggart. We've definitely talked about her in the past. Episode 16 of Season 2 is titled The Neighbor Dies. Ruthie feels guilty after her neighbor dies during an argument. Episode 17 is titled Money from Home. Larry's ex-wife sends him a check to help buy a house for his daughters. Aw, that's nice. Does that mean that Larry Alder was getting palimony? She's just giving him money? That's different. Not unheard of, but just different. Episode 18 is titled Larry's Midlife Crisis Part 1. Larry ends up in jail and fired after using his radio show to protest the destruction of a local hotel that's housing senior citizens. Nobody worth mentioning there, so we'll go to episode 19, which is Larry's Midlife Crisis Part 2. Larry looks for a new job. Episode 20. Larry's Midlife Crisis Part 3. Oh, I wonder what type of job he gets. With Morgan also out of a job, Larry goes to confront the son of his ex-boss. Wow, everybody's losing their job. Apparently the radio station owner is Mr. Black. Playing the boss is Parley Bear. Parley Bear was on 22 episodes of The Young and the Restless from 1993 to 1996. Beyond that, he was on 7 episodes of The Dukes of Hazzard as Doc Appleby. Playing his grandson, not the son, go figure, is David Landsberg. He played Barton III in this episode. He's better known for doing voice work, specifically on Stanley cartoons. He also gave voices to Saturday Supercade. And unfortunately, doesn't even say what characters he voiced, just other characters. He was also on CPO Sharky. He played Recruit Skolnick 37 episodes. Episode 21 is titled The Rockstar Part 1. Diane runs away from home to see a rock star. This can't end well. I'm guessing this may be the rock star. Just looking at him, he sort of looks like a rock star type playing Rick. George O'Hanlon Jr. Only thing of note I see for him, which may interest you guys minimally, is he was on an episode of Star Trek TNG as a transporter chief. He did play Sergeant Rafferty on Jake and the Fat Man. How about that? Looks like the 1989 to 1990 season.
That would have probably been when they were in Hawaii, right?
Can you go to Hawaii? Don't they have cheese danishes over there? We know he doesn't like cheese.
Well, part of the show was set in Hawaii after, like, I think the first season.
I haven't seen Jake and the Fat Man in a long time. I can't answer that. Also, since he's George O'Hanlon Jr., his father is George O'Hanlon Sr., naturally. He voiced George Jetson. Episode 22 is titled The Rockstar Part 2. Diane must choose between her family and her relationship with rock star Kurt Stone.
What kind of a rock star name is that? Kurt Stone.
Well, it's not George O'Hanlon Jr., I'll tell you that. The person who played Kurt Stone is Joey Travolta, no relation to Ellen or John. We're nearing the end. Episode 23 is titled The Protege. Larry gives Tommy advice on women. He's divorced. What does he know about women? Well, I understand. Yeah, but just, I don't know. Doesn't sound like a good idea. We do have a couple of names in this episode. Playing Miss Putnam is Barbara Cason. Gary Shandling's mom from It's Gary Shandling's Show. We've mentioned her in the past, and I think that's the only reason we mentioned her is because she played Gary Shandling's mom. But we do have another name, no character name though. Gloria DeHaven was in this episode. Next up, the final episode, Yearning. Morgan's new secretary dates Larry's father. And actually, Gloria DeHaven, she may be that new secretary, and she's given a name in this episode, Lorraine. That is the series. That's Hello, Larry. What went wrong? Should we take a look at the ratings? Should we take a look at the schedule? Should we just blame NBC in 1979 and 1980, which I think is as valid of a choice as the other ones, because the schedule was not really good for Hello, Larry. To start, Hello, Larry aired maybe in a death zone. It aired on Friday nights at 9:30 p.m. Remember, not a lot of people are watching TV on Friday nights at this point, so that may kind of hurt here. On CBS, you had The Dukes of Hazzard. First season. That's not good. On ABC, at least for the premiere, was a movie. The Pink Panther Strikes Again. I do think you can attribute NBC in 1979 to the downfall of, well, many things on NBC in 1979. If you look at that Friday night schedule, Different Strokes is perfectly fine. We know that lasted until 86, had a very long life, very successful. But then you have Brothers and Sisters, one of the 50 worst shows of all time. We just talked about that. And then at 9, how about another one of the 50 worst shows of all time, Turnabout. And here's where Greg does his Sharon Gless chomping on a cigar.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Sharon Gless. I got a cigar in my mouth, and I'm smoking it like a real man. Yeah, I'm smoking. I'm thinking of...
What happened there, Sharon?
Yeah, I was taking too many puffs of the cigar because I'm trying to smoke it like a man.
That was stupid. Then you had Hello, Larry at 9:30, and then 10 o'clock. Gosh, I wish there was more of this show because I think all three of us want to cover this show. Sweepstakes.
Oh, yes, sweepstakes. There's not much of this out there.
No, that's the problem. But also, that was sort of the problem we had with Hello, Larry when we first did this show. There were bits and pieces, but some intrepid user in the last year or two uploaded almost the entire series to YouTube. So you can watch the whole series and make your own determination. Is Hello, Larry as bad as its reputation makes it sound? As I said, I don't think it was too bad. Maybe they were going for the sex factor, focusing on the girls primarily and their dating lives. But still, I do see connections and parallels to Different Strokes. So that was the schedule for the premiere episode. What if we look down the road? What if we go to season 2? What did that schedule look like? Hello, Larry moved to Wednesday nights. Here's the competition and what was airing before and after. Hello, Larry in season 2 aired at 9:30 on Wednesday nights now, not Fridays. Conveniently, what was right before Hello, Larry? Different Strokes. I don't know if that's necessarily out of convenience or if that just ties those crossover episodes together very nicely. But there you go. Different Strokes and then Hello, Larry. On CBS, really, it looks like they had various programming. Movies, specials. But on ABC, you're not beating Charlie's Angels. I do have ratings, though. Maybe the ratings will paint a different picture for better or for worse. I've got a lot of ratings, actually, but I'll go through selected weeks. I'm going to guess this is for week 1, the premiere week, maybe the second week. Out of 56 shows, Hello, Larry came in at 53rd. So right near the bottom, only beating a movie on NBC called Viva Knievel. I don't want to know what that is.
That's about Evil Knievel, silly.
Well, I know, but what's the Viva part? Is it like Spanish Evil Knievel? Does Evil Knievel play like Viva Pinata?
Now, hold on a second. I do want to see a movie about Evil Knievel playing Viva Pinata, even though that game probably doesn't exist for like another 26 years.
Viva Knievel is a 1977 action film starring Evil Knievel as himself, Gene Kelly, and Lauren Hutton.
That's who are three people who have never been in my kitchen if there ever was one.
Oh, if you want more people that have never been in your kitchen, listen to the supporting cast. Red Buttons, Leslie Nielsen, Frank Gifford, Dabney Coleman. It's like a who's who. Moving on to the following week. So again, this is either 2 or 3. 62 shows. Hello, Larry came in 56th. Beating Sweepstakes again. The Paper Chase. And making it. Unsurprisingly. It's got to get better before it gets worse. It can't really get much worse. If we move to the next week, oddly enough, this is 3 weeks back to back to back. Out of 64 shows, Hello Larry was 45th. So it's moving up. Maybe that positive swing upwards may give the network some confidence. Who knows? And then really quickly for some other weeks, 34th, 51st, 50th out of 70 shows. So it's not looking too good. But one thing I did notice in my little bit of research here is near the end of the series, not reruns, original episodes, the ratings actually did bounce back. Looking at late January, early February of 1980, out of, oh no, it's not 69, out of 67 shows. 6-7! Hello Larry was tied for 35th. So it's really close to that halfway mark. Like I said, it is rebounding a little bit. The ratings are not terribly bad. The following week, out of 68 shows, it was 39th. So again, right near that midway point. And then end of February / early March of 1980, out of 62 shows, it was 48th. But then I pull up another week. This is late March of 1980. Out of 69 shows,
Happy 69.
Hello Larry was 31st. Like I said, it had a brief upswing right near the end of the series. That next week, 66 shows, it finished 35th. So again, right near the midway point, a little bit below the median point. As I said earlier, this series, thanks to a very nice YouTube user, just about the entire series is online. I think there's a few episodes missing. Specifically, season 1, I think maybe the first episode is missing. But 97% of the series is on YouTube. Watch it, make your own judgment, determine if it really is as bad as people say, or if that's just sort of stereotyping NBC shows in 1979. That's what Turnabout and Super Train and gosh knows how many other bad shows NBC had at the time. I don't want to say everybody gets from that time. Obviously, Different Strokes didn't get that reputation. But like everything that didn't last long, it's because NBC sucked. And maybe Hello Larry unjustifiably sort of hurt McLean Stevenson's career. Yes, he had more stuff, but we keep hearing about that McLean Stevenson curse. After he left MASH, everything he did was bad. This lasted almost 40 episodes, 2 seasons, so was it necessarily that bad? Maybe in comparison to Kondo and the McLean Stevenson show, it wasn't bad. Maybe it was the girls carrying the show. Who knows? Does anybody else have anything they want to add to this episode?
Oh, I got something to add. And it's the return of a segment that we haven't had for a while. It's the return of It Was a Thing on TV Haiku Corner.
How did I know we were going to get a haiku?
Well, yeah, because we didn't have a haiku about it the first time way back when. Here we go. Are you prepared, guys, for this haiku? that I put through ChatGPT.
Lay it on us.
Okay. Apologies that there's no music in the background, by the way. I'm guessing Mike lost the file when the hard drive crashed recently. Portland nights unfold. Larry laughs through life's chaos. Warm hearts on the air.
Okay, that's not bad. With that, what can we say about Hello Larry? As I said, was it a victim of circumstance? Being a victim of that reputation of just everything on NBC in 1979 was crap? Potentially. Was it bad? I don't think it was too bad. I may be alone in that. Sadly, though, in the end, Hello Larry, it was just a thing on TV yet again. You can find us at our website, itwasathingontv.com, on Facebook at It Was a Thing on TV Podcast, and elsewhere at It Was a Thing on TV. You can find us on any podcast player, and we're also on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our releases, including what's coming up next time.
McLean Stevenson's birthday celebration continues with a show that was poised for success. It had great writers, great producers, and a great lead in a Broadway star with a whole lot of talent. And then somehow McLean Stevenson gets involved, and it all just goes to hell from there. Which is ironic, because it's about a priest. And that is coming up next time, right here on It Was a Thing on TV. For Mike, for Greg, I'm Chico. Thank you ever so much for listening. Please be kind to one another, and we will see you for the next one.
Wow!
Dad gives advice on his radio talk show. Yeah, he's just full of it.
But at home, advice to his teenage daughters isn't easy.
What's troubling you, honey?
Well, I can't spell it out. S-E-X.
Hello, trouble. Hello, Larry. Fridays on the new NBC.